October 15th edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, you picked the perfect session because we're talking about empowering connections. So what I want you to do, jump in the chat and connect with a fellow Urban League supporter. Connect, let them know where you're from. Let us know where you're from. Whether it's your first time or your 10th time, we're excited that you're spending this hour with us. And trust me, we will not disappoint. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. Listen, if you want more, visit the nuljobsnetwork.com page to gather more information. I'm looking at the chat. It has me laughing. I see y'all. I really appreciate it. Listen, today's Digital Career Success Series, Empowering Connections, the Art of Networking in a Virtual Age, features Lori Sutton and is brought to you by the American Water Charitable Foundation. Lori, welcome to the DCSS.
Thank you. So glad to be here today. Appreciate the invitation.
Listen, we're extremely excited to have you here. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the organization, American Water Charitable Foundation.
Yes, happy to do. So the American Water Charitable Foundation is a nonprofit organization established by American Water, which is my employer. And one of the things about American Water Charitable Foundation is that we have three pillars. I happen to serve as one of the board members for the foundation, and we focus on water, people, and communities. And so when you think about those three things, they support each other. So it's really an impactful organization that, I'm happy to be part of as a board member. And we've been in existence since 2012. And since then, we have given to several communities, ranging to $20 million supporting those communities. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that, especially for today, is that we have to date contributed $500,000 to the National Urban League to support workforce development and programming. So very happy to be here to represent the American Water Charitable Foundation.
Well, we're excited to have you here. We're excited to have the American Water Charitable Foundation as a partner and ally of the National Urban League. Thank you so very much. Okay, I'm waiting to hear a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So Lori Sutton, so it's interesting because I have had a very unique career, and there's so many people that I can give credit to for what I've accomplished in my career. So by degree, I'm an accountant. I have 16 years of accounting experience, and one day I literally woke up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not because I don't think accounting is a great profession. Just for me, I wanted to do something where I felt like I was really helping people because people have really helped me in my career. And so transitioned over the years, have worked for a couple different organizations in accounting, but then also moving into HR, which I'll kind of share a little bit later in our discussion. So now I'm working at American Water. I've been with the organization for almost 2.5 years. Started off as the chief ID&E officer, had a couple of other roles added over these 2.5 years. And then in April of this year was asked to move into the CHRO role.
I love it. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm a recruiter, so I always love people's career stories. It's always something like, I love the storytelling aspect when people are speaking about careers. Today's discussion, though, we're here to talk about empowering connections, the art of networking in a virtual age. Extremely important topic. So I'd love for us to just kind of jump into it. I know they're waiting for us to drop some gems, as our dear friend Julius would say, regarding, the best career path isn't always a straight line. That's where we wanted to start this conversation. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so definitely not a straight line. For me, I don't even know how to describe it. It was zigzagging, stepping back, moving to the side. So kind of pick back up from the introduction. Um, Started out as an accountant, and when I was in school, one of the reasons why I pursued a degree in accounting is because people told me that I was good in math and I should think about that because I really didn't have any knowledge of a lot of the careers at that time. So went into accounting, worked for several different organizations, enjoyed it, learned a lot. And when I decided that, I wanted to take a different path, I decided to go back to school to get my master's degree. And at that time, I had a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my husband had moved into real estate, and it was a lot going on within our household. So I decided to go back to get my master's degree because I wanted employers to see me as not just an accountant, but that I could, learn new things. So I transitioned to a different organization, and in my mind, I was working for a hospital at the time, and I thought, well, it's going to be kind of hard for me to move into a different area. So I probably need to move to an organization that once I learn about the organization, I can potentially move into a different area. So I moved to a gas and electric utility within Indiana and had a couple different roles there. And then I was asked to join the Diversity Action Council and represent accounting. And that's when I like clicked. I'm like, wow, I think this is something I want to do.
Yes.
But I didn't know how I was going to get there because I didn't have any HR background or background in ID&E. And so I had my performance evaluation, was terrified to tell my current leader that I don't want to do this anymore. So had my performance evaluation. He said, Lori, you're doing a great job, but you're not as engaged as you should be at this point in your career. And I said, well, I don't want to do accounting anymore. And I didn't know how that was going to land. It didn't land well. I'll say that. But then fast forward, had a conversation with our controller at that time, and this is part of that network. Her and I, we didn't work, on a day-to-day basis, but I literally started talking to her because she would walk past my desk, and I loved her shoes and her purses. That is literally how our relationship began. And so she went to the VP of HR at that time and said, Lori is interested in doing other things. She's interested in ID&E. And if there's an opportunity, I would like for you to consider her. So this is where the path changed drastically. So I started job shadowing the at that time the ID&E manager while I was doing my full-time role. And it was hard because I had to decide, how I was managing people at the time. So I pretty much did projects on my own time, in the evenings, on the weekends, and that's how I started to gain experience in the area. Eventually, that manager left the organization. They didn't post the job for a while. Then they posted the role, and they said, Lori, you've worked for about a year job shadowing. We think you have, solid experience. But we want to let you know if you take this role, it will not be a manager. It's going to be an administrator.
Okay.
And they said if you get one more increase, you'll be at the top of the scale. So we don't know if you're going to be interested or not. So I had to do a pause, thinking about, my husband just changed his career, young children, and, financially, I'm like, this could really impact us financially. Prayed about it, and then I'm, like, you know what, that's okay because that's fine. I'm going to make it what it needs to be.
Love it.
So it was a lateral move, and people told me, why are you doing that? That is, you shouldn't do that. That's going to hurt your career. Well, it ended up pretty well. So after that, I was in that role as an administrator. Within 3 years, I became a director, so was elevated two levels, and then career from there. Just joined some other organizations, had global roles in ID&E. But as I moved, I also gained a lot of HR experience because I did take a job where so let me back up just a little bit. I left that organization. At that time there was an acquisition and I voluntarily left because I didn't feel like the culture was for me.
Okay.
And that's another thing. is, when you're thinking about your career, you may not move up in with your current employer. So I transitioned, and that's when I stepped into an HR role. It was a dual role, HR and ID&E. And that's what really helped me gain the experience. And I'll say during that time, I loved ID&E so much, it was painful for me to do the HR role, the investigations, the recruiting, the hiring. I was like, no, just put me back over my ID&E box. But now looking back, I am sitting where I am today as a CHRO because of all of those experiences that I had with various employers. So how I would sum this up is you should not discount any opportunity that you have to learn new things. You may not always be able to step into that next level. You may have to do a lateral move. You may have to move down in order to move up. And so, over the years, that's one of the messages that I always try to share with people is never downplay an opportunity because
I,
you never know what's going to lead to.
I love that message. I have so many questions, Lori. So we're getting ready to jump really into
Yeah.
it. I was just thinking about, so I do this thing called a recruiter matrix. So I start kind of mapping out people's career path, right? And
Mhm.
you've led large teams, enterprise-wide initiatives. Back to this conversation, how has virtual networking helped you build and maintain professional relationships across multiple organizations?
Yeah. So I will say at first, I was an individual that was a little overwhelmed by the virtual presence. LinkedIn is a great tool, but there's other tools that are out there. And this really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Most of the time, people they tell me, I cannot believe this, but I am an introvert. I am the person that will go home on the weekend, shut the door, and watch mindless TV.
Listen,
And I'm
all the work you're doing, you're probably just tired. You
I
probably
am. I am. I'm all talked out. I'm all talked out. But I was a little overwhelmed by it when it came to my professional career. And so I did start asking questions of other people that I was connected with. And I saw that they had a solid presence and, how do they interact with people, especially being an introvert, it was kind of out of my comfort zone to, kind of it's almost like kind of exposing yourself to an environment that you're not used to because I didn't have to do that before. Especially when I was in that 6 months of job seeking after I left the one organization. And so one of the things that I think is helpful is that there are a lot of for free webinars, tools and resources that you can access to learn more about how to build your brand. It's really about building your brand. And people, one of the things that I love to share with my daughters, they're younger, is that your brand is across all of these platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whatever the platform, you have to have one brand. Sometimes people want to be someone different on Facebook than they are on LinkedIn. But it's really building your brand and you know, what are your values? And that's kind of how I've used some of the tools. I get inbox messages a lot, and I'm going to say, and I was debating if I was going to say this today, but we're just going to be transparent today.
Yes, please.
I don't always respond to inbox messages because some of the individuals that reach out to me, it's like a template. So it's like, is this you really contacting me, or what is the motive for the contact?
Sure.
So as you're accessing these platforms, just be yourself. That authenticity will get you much further in this virtual space than, even though I said there's resources, you have to make them your own, where it
Well,
feels like it's you.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about
Hmm.
building trust and authenticity in
Hmm.
the virtual age. So, as we speak about that, I'm sure there are some common misconceptions that people have about networking in a virtual space,
Hmm.
especially for early career professionals and just general job seekers. Any advice that you can share with them, or any, I guess, things that you've seen out here that maybe as an introvert aren't necessarily true as you start to navigate the virtual age?
Yeah, I would say that I would, if you have a trusted, whether it's an advisor, friend, um, ask for input. Ask for input on what you're looking to post, where you're looking to engage with individuals. And I'll say sometimes it does feel, like I said, a little scary doing it, but don't discount the I'm not a coffee drinker, but I know they call them coffee chats. I'm a Coke drinker. So never downplay those. If you don't feel comfortable being in that larger setting, reach out to someone and say, "Hey, can we have a coffee chat?" Because this is a great way to expand your network. You know, when before COVID, most of us may have been in offices, and it's almost, when you think about it, that was almost like a silo because we were only networking within our organizations. But now, through these virtual platforms, you can reach out and talk to people that you may have never encountered. And
Yes.
so, for me, what I've tried to do is search for these virtual groups that align with my values and also things that I'm trying to do in my career. You know, and sometimes you can get in this. I think there is a misconception around I need to join all the groups that I possibly can. It's quality, not quantity. You need to join those that you feel align with where you're trying to go. And so that is a misconception, I think, that people feel like they got to join every HR group. You know, when I was in accounting, every accounting group. But do your research. Do your research and you know, ask a trusted advisor, how do you think, or mentor, this group may align with who you know that I am.
You know, I can appreciate the direction on that because it sounds like you're speaking about kind of opening up and expanding opportunities that may not be directly next to you, but they're out here in this virtual
Yeah.
space that's so vast. From your
Mm-hmm.
perspective as a DEI leader, how can virtual networking be leveraged to create maybe more inclusive and equitable opportunities, especially for underrepresented talent?
Yeah, I know for me, I know this is the truth because of where I am in my personal life. So, you know, I'm blessed to have my mom who is 94 years young. And then I have a new grandson who can have anything he wants from me. My daughter is spoiled, but he is more spoiled than her. But I know for a fact I would not be working at American Water if COVID would not have happened because I am not in a position to relocate.
Okay.
And so I think what it's done for underrepresented groups is that it's opened up like a new world to us, and it's allowed us to see and experience things that we may not have experienced before. You know, I grew up still live in southwestern Indiana. I love living there, but as I'm, you know, being blessed to have different opportunities to travel, I'm seeing things that I never would have seen if I would have just stayed, you know, as having my employer within Evansville, Indiana.
Sure.
I've had the opportunity to work for global organizations, learned a lot there, and also found out that's not the environment for me. And so I think that it's almost that, you know, I used to be the person because my dad, he worked for 40 years with his employer.
Mhm.
And every time I would switch jobs, he's like, "You're leaving that good job." But the thing that it's done is it's opened up for organizations a much wider talent pool. It's allowing, you know, underrepresented groups to have experiences that we may not have experienced within our local area, and that's driving that new culture. So, you know, being able to expand, build the diversity within your organization, it's making us better organizations actually. And so, you know, like I said, I was afraid of the virtual, but now I'm like a huge supporter of anything AI. I love to try out new things. So I think it's just being open on both sides of it.
You know, open on both sides. You know, virtual networking spaces. Sometimes people are concerned that they may not be welcoming or even accessible, especially for diverse professionals, and the ones that, if you, especially if you're feeling marginalized or overlooked, right?
Hmm.
So within that framework, you know, we're talking about giving people a way to kind of amplify their presence and their strengths, even in a virtual setting. And as we speak about the art of networking, how do you suggest people kind of, you know, amplify their strengths for impact?
Hmm. Um, so I've worked in corporate America my entire career. And this is it's just been over time, me getting comfortable with myself, um, being comfortable with, being my own cheerleader. And so it goes back to building that brand that is you, because, when you I will say that corporate America over time, it told me that I needed to be certain things.
Mm.
I couldn't wear my natural hair. Now I know I don't have my natural hair today, but I do wear my natural hair. And one of the things that I did that was like a stepping stone for me to start to feel comfortable is that I told myself, every professional picture that I take, it's going to be with natural hair, or it's going to be, like in the picture we have today, it was braids.
Okay.
And for me, that was like my, Lori, you are who you are, and that's how you're going to show up. And so at some point, we have to tell ourselves, who is it that we want to be, instead of sometimes being who we think people want us to be. And that has helped me to be successful in my career, because there's only one Lori Sutton. I show up like this every day. When I started leading this new team, I got a little, there was like a little rumor mill that said, Lori cannot, is she going to change? And I'm like, no, there's only one Lori Sutton. This is who she is. I'm comfortable with Lori Sutton. So that's where we have to do self reflection, um, in order to bring that confidence out virtually. And so one of the things that, I try to share with folks is that you can work 100% remote, but when you show up, you need to show up with confidence. You need to have the appearance. Now, I'm not going to tell any stories. I may have shorts on, uh, you know, on a Zoom call, but it's like, show up, because when you look good, you feel good. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy expensive clothes. It's just come prepared, because this square is that first impression, means everything.
I know a lot of people coming out of COVID, and people that were just getting a little more comfortable with being on a Zoom or Teams call or whatever platform their organization was using. They were concerned that they wouldn't be able to, and to your point, come as their unique self, but also to convey their strengths
Yeah.
enough to add impact within an organization. Any tips for people that are really looking to have measurable impact, but maybe feel that not being in the same room as another individual may kind of cause some challenges to that?
Yeah, so I think that sometimes when we show up, whether it's in meetings, virtually, it's not always easy to interject. It's not always easy to, demonstrate your strengths. And so I think that doing follow-ups with individuals is a great idea. Building out that network, and really trying to hone in on, who you want them to see. I know that sometimes when we're on meetings, there's always one who wants to do all the talking, who who wants to answer all the questions, and it's hard to interject. But to prepare for these meetings, one of the things that I would suggest, is write down, what are the three things that I want to convey in this meeting, and what is the best way for me to do that. And so, if you are leading the discussion to be inclusive, make sure that you're trying to make sure everyone has a voice. So I did want to make that point. But for yourself, I would, um, make a list of the things that you want to make sure that you can convey, during the conversation. And if you're unable to do that, I would suggest setting up one-on-ones, with individuals, because one, they'll get to know you better, and then you can convey and demonstrate the strengths and the impact that you can make. The other thing is, and this kind of gets out, you could get out of your comfort zone, is don't be afraid to raise your hand to do things that may be outside of what you usually do. There's always a to-do list on all of these calls.
Yes.
And so that's a great way for you to demonstrate your strengths, for you to build your network. Because I truly believe that's another area where I raised my hand in previous, settings, and I really didn't want to do it, but it was one of those things where it's like, I've got to get out of this sitting back and waiting on people to ask me to do it. And so that would be some of the things that I would suggest.
I love it. Speaking of waving your hand, this is the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. There will be a Q&A coming up shortly. Please leave your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them. Lori is gracious enough to offer her time to answer some of your questions as well. I can't be the only one giving all the questions. Listen, I know some of you are probably wondering where you can find this chat. This conversation and all of the past episodes are available on the Urban League Jobs Network YouTube channel, and you can find that by going to YouTube and putting in Urban League Jobs Network. We are here today with Lori Sutton. This show is brought to you by American Water Charitable Foundation. We are talking about virtual networking. Lori, I know you spoke about reaching out to people, maybe even after the call, to make a personal connection. I'm sorry, after the actual Zoom or Teams meeting. Any other tips that you have that have worked for you in kind of improving your relationships or that bond in a digital age?
Yeah. Other tips that have worked for me is, regardless of the platform you're on, I had to go back and do some. So I will say I love Chat GPT and Copilot. I am a strong supporter of both of them. Um, there's always that introduction that's in your profile, regardless of which platform that you use. Over time, I've had to go back and make sure that I'm reviewing that. And so you never know, when people are reaching out, when they're looking for new talent, you want to make sure that that stays up to date. So that's one of the things that I've tried to do is to ensure that my information is correct. But also, one of the things that I had seen over time is where people have added almost like a personal statement of their strengths. And that was one thing that was, kind of hard for me. And I would see people that would say, experienced HR professional, seasoned, this, that, or the other. If you're not sure how to put those together, I would encourage you to use Chat GPT or some type of AI tool. And it's as easy as saying, you can put your resume in there and say, can you come up with a short paragraph to sum up my experience? Those are just that's a quick tip that I would suggest. And the other tip is making sure that you engage on these platforms and engage in a way that's positive. I know sometimes, LinkedIn is a little bit different than your Instagram and your Facebook, but it's your brand regardless. And so making sure that you're engaging in conversations, because you never know who's watching that post, who's interacting. That's a great way for them to source you, as new talent in their organization. So engaging in these conversations is also a tip that I would suggest.
Yeah, so engaging, especially if you're having an internal conversation with your organization, just acknowledging that you've heard someone's point.
Hmm.
You mentioned earlier about people maybe talking a lot during these conversations and things of that nature, but I think there are so many ways to just acknowledge that you've heard their point, whether it's through the chat or simply
Hmm.
just making a motion. That people are watching you. It's the same way as if you were in the room with them.
Hmm.
You kind of establish a connection. Any tips on ways that people can establish connections with internal stakeholders that may allow them to have a future conversation?
Yeah. Virtually or just in general?
Virtually. I tell you
Virtually.
what, we're talking about virtual networking here,
Yeah.
but I'm sure our audience would take both pointers.
Yeah.
If you
Okay. Okay. So virtually, I would say, and I'm gonna say that I am guilty of this sometimes too. When you are in these virtual platforms, make sure you're connecting with the speaker. Sometimes, because we have so much on our plate, we've taken the screen, we've got the Zoom on half of it, we've got our emails on the other half of it. But I'm telling you, people can tell when you're not paying attention. So, so making sure that you're engaged, because that could be your one time to add to the conversation. And so, eye contact is important, even as I'm doing today. Sometimes I'm still looking up, but it's making sure that you're engaging, with whomever is talking. Making sure you're using the react button, because that's also, where people see that you're engaged. So, there's the heart, there's the hand clap, all those things. And so, engaging in the chat. You could pose a question or answering to a question. That also shows engagement. When it comes to more of the face to face, one of the things that I learned over time is asking someone to go to lunch, because everybody has to eat. And I'll say that at American Water, I think that our leaders and just people in general are genuinely just nice people, and so you know you could ask anyone to have coffee or go to lunch, but that is the biggest compliment to someone if you ask them, "Hey, I would love to talk to you just to see, how I could, whether it's get on a project, learn more about you and your career." But lunch, I'm telling you, because everybody has to eat at some given time, or snack. Um, and
And
then,
usually that's more than a 5 minute conversation. If you're taking
yeah,
somebody to lunch, you probably have a little bit of time to kind of interact.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I think, and if you're not the type of person that, feels like, "Ooh, that may not be appropriate," send someone an email, and help to drive that conversation. One of the things that I've learned over time is that people are just people. We may have these titles. I know some people, they exude different things with their titles. But most people see this as a compliment when someone asks for their advice or to interact with them. So don't be shy. I would just suggest sending that email, or if you see them in the hall, just, "Hey, do you have like 5, 15 minutes for a snack or just to have conversation?"
I love that you mentioned that. This is the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, and we cater to our young professionals. And some of
Mhm.
them are early in their career journey. And when was that? That was Monday. I host a radio show. And
Okay.
Monday, my guest was Harlany Vasquez. She's a LinkedIn instructor. And she was saying that a lot of her early career professionals are somewhat reluctant to reach out to people online that are executives because they don't think that they're
Mhm.
going to respond or accept their invite. Any advice to people that are feeling that way? Her advice was, you got to shoot your shot, right?
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I'll say this, and this is not in my defense, but I am, because I'm going to be transparent. Just because I don't answer it right off the back does not mean eventually I will not answer it.
Okay.
So, I will say for me, because I'm new in my role, this the transition of my role. I've gotten a little behind on responding to individuals on LinkedIn, but you do. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. I'll
No.
say that it is not going to hurt anything. It shows, I think sometimes people see it as, "Oh, it's a little aggressive." It's not. In this day and age, you have to, because so many people are, trying to engage. Um, you've got to do, but I'll say this: as you engage, don't use the template. Be yourself, be authentic, and that's what's going to drive that connection. An example I have is, there was this young man that we interviewed for a role at American Water, and he did decline our offer. And it was okay, because I am truly one of those individuals that I do believe that everyone, there's a time and a place where you're supposed to be. And he had an opportunity that he felt like was a once in a lifetime opportunity to help develop leaders of color. And I told him, I said, "Hey, I've worked in ID&E. I get it. That is a chance of a lifetime." This young man, I don't know his age. I'm just going to guess his age. I would say he's definitely younger than 30. He continued to reach out to me. It's almost like he had it on a calendar. Every 90 days, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I've been seeing, the changes you've done in your career, and just wanted to know if you have time to have a conversation." And I thought, "Oh yeah, you're going to tell me that you're sad that you didn't take the job that we offered you." But it wasn't. He just wanted to stay in connection with me.
Love it.
And so the more we did this, the more I was like, "I've got to get this young man into American Water." And so we've continued to have conversations. there are roles that he's been interested in. And he said, you know what? Regardless if I'd never work at American Water, I'm just glad that I took the opportunity to get to know you. And now I know that I have someone that if I need to bounce things off of, you're there. And so I thought to myself, wow, would I have done that at probably 25? No, I would not have. But that connection that I made with him, I just have so much respect for him. But he shot his shot.
You know,
And now we have that connection.
so that's probably the beauty of networking in the virtual age as well. I used to always tell, so on the recruiter side of this, right? So if people don't receive the job offer, I'm like, listen, they didn't say never, they just said no. That could be a no,
Right.
not right now. So you're looking
Mhm.
at that from the standpoint of the hiring manager who's saying,
Mhm.
I'm not taking that no as a never. I'll continue to work.
Yeah.
But being able to connect virtually through LinkedIn or whatever means allowed him to stay connected with you maybe
Mhm.
a little more seamlessly over those 90-day windows, like everything
Mhm.
in you. So I love that story. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm still pulling for you. I
Yeah,
think
and this is the thing. I told him, I said, one of these days we're gonna be colleagues. I feel it. I don't know if it's gonna be in HR. I just feel like, it's gonna happen one day. And I thought about that, and I've even, just over these last couple months, I would have never met that young man if we weren't in a virtual capacity. I interviewed him virtually. I've never met him face to face. But I thought, wow, I would have never met him if we didn't have the technology and the spaces and the platforms in order to do that. So I young people, not even young people, mature people, you got to shoot your shot, and you never know where it's going to land you. And I even told him, hey, we may not have any roles available at American Water, but let me connect you with some other folks that I know in your area. And so you never know where it's going to take you.
you never know. This
Mhm.
conversation, empowering connections, networking in the virtual age is really interesting now because I'd love to hear your thoughts on people leveraging some of the LLM models, Chat GPT, Claude, whatever it is that the person's using, and they're communicating, but a lot of them are sending messages out using those interfaces and then replying back using that, like that same technology. So you're never really injecting yourself into the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Any feedback for people that may be overusing some of those tools in their networking interactions?
Yeah. So I won't back off of I'm a huge supporter
Yeah.
because it does make life easier. But you're right. You have to ensure that you can type something into any of these platforms. You have to read it. You have to make sure it has your tone. It needs to sound like you. And so that goes back to, building that confidence, being authentic. But you also have to be strategic in this. Um, you know, you want so for me, so Lori Sutton, I need to show up. I've already demonstrated who I am. I think I've demonstrated, my values, how I respond to things. But every now and then, Lori Sutton gets stuck on something. and and that's how I use it. So an example is with ID&E. Led that effort for 14 years and still have it within my leadership, or assist one of my leaders with that. There's only so many ways you can talk about ID&E without repeating yourself. So that's where I think these tools can help because it can bring a different perspective, different thought process to it, but it still needs to be in the language that how I talk about
Sure.
things. So that's where you have to make sure that you're not discounting your own knowledge. It may just be I need to just change up a couple of words so that it sounds a little bit different and a little bit more enthusiastic.
Okay.
And one of the things I have learned through Copilot is that it will learn your language. The more you use it, it will learn your language. But you should not downplay your own knowledge and research. Research is still good. I think that, because I was talking to my daughter about it, she's still in college, and she said, yeah, you would not, there are so many people that write their whole paper through these tools. And she's like, and then when they have tests, they can't, do anything because they've let ChatGPT teach them. So it's using it to your advantage, but never discounting your own knowledge and doing that grind of researching.
The ground of researching, indeed. We're getting ready to bounce this conversation into the Q&A segment. I think they're ready for you, Lori. I think they have some questions they're going to ask. We're going to work our way through a few. I have one here. And this is a question I had for myself, right? You've led mentoring programs like Dream Big. We've done our research here at the Urban League Network. And how has virtual networking influenced mentorship models and talent development strategies for you?
So I'll say that it has helped us. I know we keep using this word expand, but it's helped us to expand. So I will say that, the younger, I don't want to call them young people. I'll call them young people. Heavily technology driven, which there's nothing wrong with that because I like technology too. But I think that there's a balance. You can provide, technology driven mentoring tools, but it still doesn't take away from that one-on-one, that conversation, because the technology sometimes can be, and it can become an obstacle. So Dream Big, was a high school mentoring program that I started with a previous employer. And at that time, technology was big, but it wasn't really big. And so it was face to face. We gave them experiences that they may not have had, going on a college campus, staying in a dorm, learning about, different areas within our organization. But as I have, kind of thought about this new technology, how we are using that for our mentoring is, how is this a plus for our organization? How do we use like drones and all these things that are you know, more appealing to the younger generation? So I do think that from a mentoring perspective, you definitely can use technology,
Okay.
but it never takes away from that face to face. And maybe the face to face now it's through technology, but you
Yeah,
still have to have that conversational piece. But the face to face, it's always helpful. But this is a new avenue. It's another avenue. Um, you know, and one last thing. The one thing I do like about technology is that it doesn't have to be a one-on-one mentoring relationship. It's easier for you to do group mentoring. So
okay.
I do think that that makes it a little bit, that is a true enhancement because depending upon what platform you're on, you can put people in rooms where they can do activities and then bring everybody back together for conversation. So I do think the platforms are helpful in that from a mentoring perspective.
I love it. Next question here comes from Melissa. How can we best leverage platforms to build authentic professional relationships and not just make surface level connections?
Ooh, yeah, because we can hide behind this technology for sure. Um, so I would say that it kind of goes back to my original question, or my comment of, you have to show up as your authentic self.
Mhm.
It's easy to come to a virtual platform. So I'll say today, I had some travel issues. So, I have on this pullover. I was going to wear something totally different, but my luggage is still in Atlanta and I'm somewhere else. But I decided today it's okay to have this pullover, but when I come, it's going to be ironed.
It's fun.
You need to be presentable in the space. And so authenticity is probably more important in this virtual space than it is face to face. And so um just bring your authentic self. When you're trying, what are you trying to gain through these relationships? Is it a network to grow your business, or is it a network to learn from? Is it a network where you're aspiring to do something different? You've got to figure out, what are you trying to gain from the relationship? But regardless, you have to show up as your authentic self.
Love it.
to be comfortable in order to drive what it is you're trying to achieve. So hopefully that was helpful.
I think it was extremely helpful. We have a question from Ebony, and clearly she was listening to part of your earlier conversation. So she says, as an introvert, do you have any rituals or mental prep that you practice before stepping into networking spaces? I would imagine this can apply to virtual and in-person networking.
Yeah. So I'll say this in the spirit of inclusion. I know that everyone is not a believer, and I'm not trying to put religion on anyone, but I'm going to say for me, I have this same prayer. I said it today before I got online. Because for me, my faith is what strengthens me and helps me. And I always say, this is not me talking. I need your assistance. Just like when I moved into the CHRO role, this is not Lori Sutton's job. This is your job. And I need you to show up. So that's one of my rituals. The other thing is that it you have to make your own decision on this. So I'll say for me, if I prep too much for something, I'm not going to do well. I do better showing up more impromptu than prep. And that's something that you have to decide what works best for you. So I think it's for me, the prep is I will read over, you know, like for today, I want to make sure that I understand, the purpose of the conversation. I prepare that way. I have my prayer. Um, and I also try to just clear my mind before. So 30 minutes before, I try to make sure I've blocked out my calendar, especially if it's a really important engagement, just to clear my mind.
Mhm.
Um, I had the luxury today to go for a walk before this call, and it really helped to clear my mind and to just help me focus, and it gives you energy. So if you can just come up with something that you like to do, it could be reading you know, uh there's so many, writing a journal, and I have some friends that they write in journals before to kind of clear their mind.
Sure.
A motivational, a scripture, it could be a you know, something that inspires you. You find that thing, and that's what I would suggest be your prep.
Love it. Love it. This is from Carla. Where can you find other virtual networking spaces other than LinkedIn? I want to tap in here real quick because I think I can offer some solid advice. Listen,
Hmm.
you can find them through a lot of the professional networks. They also have Facebook groups that you can jump into. And as Lori had mentioned earlier, she's an accountant, so there is a National Association of Accountants, right?
Hmm.
But they have a
Hmm.
Facebook group that you can jump into and connect and do things like that. The Indeed Job Search Academy is also a good place where you can jump in
Hmm.
and connect with other people. Glassdoor, there are a ton of different platforms that will allow you to make some connections. Maybe not as is leveraged as LinkedIn, but they're out there and they do exist. If you want to connect with me here on LinkedIn, maybe I can share some information for you that might be of assistance. Any
Hmm.
advice for that person, Lori?
Yeah, this is where I think our friend Google comes into play too. Um, you know, because of the transition I've had over the last year, I started, there were a couple things that I felt like I needed for me personally, in order to be successful in this role. Because if someone would have told me that I was going to be sitting as an EVP CHRO, I would have said, "What are you talking about? There's no way that's going to happen." So I have used Google to find groups, newsletters, tips on things that I feel like I need personally to be successful professionally. I've found some groups, and to your point, they ended up being on Facebook that I didn't know anything about, because sometimes I get a little confused on how to find things within Facebook or Instagram, and so that's how I have found a couple of the groups that I have been following, and there is an opportunity to engage with them as well. The other thing is that I wouldn't downplay local organizations that may have access to different resources as well. But I definitely agree with you on the various platforms that you just mentioned.
Excellent. You know what? I'm going to follow up here. There was a follow-up question to a question you answered. Uh, and the question is, in the digital world that's always on, what strategies help you maintain healthy boundaries while still showing up with excellence?
Because you're always on. Whew, yes, always on. So I will say that, pros and cons to, working virtually. And I was having a conversation with someone about this yesterday about turning on your camera and not turning on your camera, and how is that perceived. And I know within our organization sometimes it's like an unwritten rule of whether or not you should have your camera on or off. And so the always on for me, I do take the opportunity sometimes throughout the day to not turn my camera on. I made sure that I had a nice picture of me so that even though I'm not on, you can still look at my what I think is a nice picture. Um, but the thing that I do to kind of clear my mind on the always on is, like I said, I like to watch mindless TV. At the end of the day, and I'm not going to tell my secret, but it has to do with housewives. I'll just say that.
I got
And
you.
it's like focusing on something where I don't even have to use my brain. It's just watching. Um, but the always on still goes back to finding time on your calendar, and you have to be intentional. This is about intentionality. Putting 15 minutes, 5 minutes throughout your day and put breather on it. Now, someone else did this for me because I was the person that's like, okay, I'm gonna block it, but I'm still gonna do work. I'm still gonna do this. That's that 5 minutes where you can get up, walk around, go talk to someone about, if or you can even do it through Teams or whatever. Talk about something that has nothing to do with work. And that's how I kind of manage that always on. But I
Gotcha.
will say this, at the end of the day, I'm wiped out because I'm an introvert. So it takes a lot.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. Listen, we're going to jump into closing remarks. I did want to say to that person, we had a guest on the Digital Career Success Series. Her name is Nicole Smith, and you can kind of go down through the YouTube listings to identify her appearance on the DCSS. But I think she covered some boundaries talk in there. I know that's a big piece of the work she's doing out here in the world, and you might find some of that on LinkedIn as well. But I do understand that creating boundaries, even virtually, is a
Hmm.
very important thing. All right, listen, Lori, I'd like to know if you have any closing remarks for our audience.
Yeah, just a couple things. One, thank you so much for joining today, and Kenneth, thank you for the opportunity to share with your listeners. I think for me, closing remarks would be, you know, just chart your own path. I think that we've all been led to believe that, we got to have this next role, we got to have this next opportunity, we got to have this next win to be successful. And I'm not for sure where the definition of success, like when was it defined and why have we allowed that definition to be our definition? You have to define what does success look like for you. And it could be a daily thing of what success looks like. For me, I travel a lot for my role. And I have to put boundaries in. Um, but as you're looking at success, know that it's okay to say no, and you still can gain that success. So my last words would be, stay true to yourself, be your authentic self, be intentional about what it is that you want, put goals around that, and then be strategic in how you move forward.
I love that share right there. I sincerely appreciate it. It's interesting because when we're speaking about networking and empowering connections and the art of networking, I think there's so much information out here, and that's what I got from some of the
Yeah.
questions. And I believe it's really important to, and I don't want to kind of make a juvenile statement on this, but bite off what you can chew.
Yeah.
There's a ton
So
of
much.
platforms and information out here, and you can never take it all in. And trust me, the minute you get it, it's going to change, or another
Mm-hmm.
platform's going to come around
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to tell you is the one for you, right?
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is find a space where you're comfortable, find a platform, and you don't need to learn it. I mean, you don't need to know it to start out, but you can learn it. and leverage it and use it for what you need it for. And don't worry about all the other noise that might be taking place.
It's
That's
quality, not quantity.
quality,
Quality.
not quality. And I don't know if these platforms aren't going anywhere. This is the way that people are doing business, that people are building connections. And that's why I think a lot of you guys joined us today for this conversation. All right. Look, if you want to stay connected to the work of Lori Sutton, I'm going to encourage you to, stay connected with her and American Water Charitable Foundation. The emails, the URL is here, amwater.com. Please lock in, learn more about American Water, learn more about the Charitable Foundation. They're doing amazing work, and they're big supporters of the work we do here at the National Urban League. So thank you to our good friends at American Water. Thank you to Lori Sutton again. She's doing some amazing work. If you want to stay connected with her, there's ways to do that as well. I know she's on LinkedIn. She said she doesn't jump in a lot, but she's there.
I will. That's fine.
All right. Look, if you want to stay connected to the work I do, it's Kenneth Johnson. EastCoastExecutives.com is the way to find out about the work we do over there. And I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I do this after every show. I encourage you guys to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect. I will accept your invite. And if I can offer any value, I will definitely try to do that. This is the work we do, and this is why we're here doing this show every other week. And speaking of every other week, we will be back November 5th for a great show. Kind of following down this path, right? It's AI, your co-pilot, not your autopilot. I know that Lori spoke a lot today about how she uses some of these tools and platforms within her role. If she can use them, you definitely can use them too. You'll learn how to effectively collaborate with AI while maintaining oversight, critical thinking, and ethical responsibilities. We'll do that November 5th from 12 to 1 here on the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. So definitely make sure you join us. I believe that's the last one of the year. So wow, another year has went by with you and me and our guests having an impact. So I'm very appreciative of that. Speaking of appreciative, I'd like to thank the team behind this, the Urban League Jobs Network team, Dawn, Julius, Wanda Jackson, leading us all the way through to the end here. It's been amazing. Ebony, thank you so very much. And Dave, for your work and making this show amazing today. And also the team at American Water Charitable Foundation for being so gracious with your time and allowing us to have Lori show up and show up big for us. Thank you all for your questions and for joining us today. I sincerely appreciate it. It's Kenneth L. Johnson, the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. I'll see you November 5th, 12 to 1 Eastern. AI, your co-pilot, not your autopilot. Thank you so very much.